So we've just seen Waiting, Funding, Dancing, the crisis in trans healthcare, and we have the creator behind the film with us. So if you'd like to introduce yourself and I guess tell us how it came about that you made this film.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Alex Parnham-Cope. I'm from rural Gloucestershire. And I'm a broadcast journalist and occasional filmmaker. And I was doing my MA in broadcast journalism at City University in London, and this was kind of my final project. I tried sort of avoiding doing anything transsexual themed throughout the year to try not to be pigeonholed in it, and then I was like, actually this is a really important thing and I would like to do this. And I kind of came across this drag, what the film explores, this nightclub event, and thought, this would be a really good way to tell this story that's hopefully not centered on me staring into a camera moaning too much.
I guess it's that you kind of, they say like, write what you know, and if this is something that is prominent and important to you, it's not at risk of being pigeonholed. It deserves to be told, and be told in a way that it will do it justice, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely like pressures pulling in opposite directions there. On the one hand, this is something that I'm really passionate about, and there's obviously a huge amount of cultural discourse about trans lives and trans quote-unquote identities, and very little materially informed examination into how that's actually impacting our lives as a community. But on the other hand, it's very hard to get work as a transgender person in journalism, and I knew if I made something that was about my trans identity, that was going to massively reduce my job and employment prospects, and to some extent it kind of did, but I still think it was worth making.
Yeah, it's amazing that you still take a chance knowing that it could have that repercussion, but that's how things change, I guess. It's still going for it, despite knowing that maybe, not that it's best not to, but so well done for being brave and doing so. Was this for a university piece? This was
kind of my final project at university, and then afterwards I've been doing some work with Queer AF, and I've been producing some audio documentaries for them about trans history, and then so the project ended up being published through them, and that was really great afterwards. So kind of transformed into a semi-professional piece in hindsight, but at the time it was just me with zero budget and my camera and my friend Ryan helping me edit. Yeah.
And how was it received?
Well, I think, hopefully, fingers crossed. I haven't had any hate mail, so that either means no one's seen it or hopefully people have liked it. But yeah, I think it was obviously an important story, but also kind of quite a personal one, and I do share some personal details. It was kind of a bit of a wrestle knowing how much of myself to put into the film. But I think people kind of resonated with that element of it, and we did some sort of social media clips of some of the interviews, including with Caroline Littman, whose daughter Alice obviously died while she was on the waiting list for NHS care. And that clip kind of went, I don't want to say went viral, but it gained a lot of traction on social media. It's got quite a few thousand views, and I still get people liking it and messaging it a year on, messaging me about that clip on Instagram, which is really nice.
And sorry, my mind.
No.
It's been a day. So you've created this as a student piece. Are you actively sharing this to LGBT festivals, or are you sharing this to festivals worldwide?
It was kind of an accident, really. I made the piece while I was, as I say, a student at City University, and then I was just going through the Film Freeway kind of platform, and I just searched LGBT and saw your kind of film festival, and was like, oh, sick, I'll just send this off, and thought absolutely nothing of it until this week, and I've been like, oh, I've got to come down to London, it's happening. So that's been really exciting, and obviously the people at Queer AF, Jamie in particular and Marty, have been really helpful with kind of professionalising the film from its student version to the version that got publicised, and helping it get a bit of traction and getting articles that went along with it and that kind of thing. So definitely very grateful to them to kind of professionalise it, but it definitely did start and mostly ended up as a project that was filmed on my camera in my bedroom.
So do you feel like you'd want to go into filmmaking further, or stay with journalism? What's the path you're planning?
Planning is a strong word.
Oh,
I guess,
sorry.
yeah.
So where do you want to be in 5 years? It's a horrible question, but do you feel like you'd want to dive more into filmmaking?
I really enjoyed filmmaking. I liked the mix of the creative side, and also the centering people's stories and journeys, and visualizing important stories, not just uncovering a piece of information, but telling that and rooting that in a sense of narrative. At the moment, I mostly work, I'm back in rural Gloucestershire now, mostly doing local journalism, assistant editing some local papers and that kind of, and like pitching stuff to local papers and that kind of thing, which I do really enjoy, and it's quite reactive kind of news sort of stuff. But I definitely think it feels kind of almost more emotional when you have this like long form project like this that it was only 7 minutes long, but took like months of research and building connections and finding case studies and building relationships with people. I don't know if all of that work is reflected in the outcome, but it felt very special to kind of see it through to fruition.
How is it for you watching it back? Have you seen it in a big screen before?
No, I hadn't. It's really cringy. Like obviously everyone when you watch back yourself, you're like, oh my god, did my hair really look like that? In a very self-indulgent way. But no, it did feel good, and I felt especially people like Elio, whose story is obviously in the film, and people like Caroline, like unfortunately their stories aren't that shocking to me, because I know a lot of people who've had very similar experiences of the real, not just metaphorical, but like literal basic battle to try and get healthcare, to get recognition, to get support. It's kind of a known secret within the context of the trans community, but to see the film kind of displayed outside that context, and maybe cis people, especially straight cis people, but queer cis people as well, who maybe don't see that reality, I think that was what was moving for me. The reception to the film was people being like, oh my god, this is so shocking, and I'm like, really? Like I know like 10 trans people off the top of my head I could count who've been put into really challenging, difficult financial circumstances, having to fund their own transition in this country. So that was kind of bittersweet, but I'm glad that it is connecting with people.
No, absolutely. Do you feel like you may have learned anything about yourself while creating the space?
It sounds flippant, but it made me realise I really don't like being on camera.
Oh.
I think there's definitely a pressure in being like a trans person specifically, but I imagine people from other marginalised identities might feel this as well, of when you're making content almost being forced to give this kind of misery porn kind of story. And obviously I've made this myself, so I didn't feel the same pressure in the same way, but it definitely made me realise that I don't necessarily want to root my career-long fight against transphobia in kind of like a standpoint identitarian perspective. I want to root it in like a justice orientated. Everyone in this country has a right to healthcare and to dignity and to fundamental like freedoms that we don't have access to at the moment. And so it was a bit of a long-rounded answer, but yeah, it just made me realise that I don't really want it to be about me.
If you could make absolutely anything in the world with unlimited budget, what's the story you'd like to tell?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure that I would tell a story about transness specifically. I think the changes that I would like to see in relation to trans lives are kind of material policy changes rather than like cultural ones. I think it's really great to have these kind of initiatives that talk about like trans identity and trans culture, but for me, I think if I was going to do something, it would probably be journalistic about kind of general social injustices, and maybe something on like privatization of public services, or something on environmental destruction and the treatment of environmental protesters, or any one of those kind of topics. I think I would like to be a journalist who's trans and not necessarily a trans journalist, if that makes sense. But that's not to diminish at all the amazing work that other trans and queer creators have done, not least of which the stuff that I've seen at this festival, which has been fantastic.
Absolutely. I think it's that double-edged sword of you are more than your gender or sexual identity, but also you are the person who should be telling these stories. And yeah, I think regardless of the stories that you tell, you seem very passionate about, I guess, anything that you're going to want to put work into. So my final question is, if you could give a piece of advice to someone who's going to start in the world of either film or journalism, what's the one thing that you'd like, before you start, you need to know?
I think I don't know. I feel like someone who's only like 1 foot in that world, I don't want to be like, and here's how I made it, kids, because I don't get. But I think the most compelling kind of thing that I've found is, I don't know, just having a bit of humility to know that you don't know everything, and that's okay, and that's how you find out the stories you want to tell. Like, I think I kind of came into journalism with my experience, like related to transness in particular, being like, I really want to tell like trans stories, and then realizing actually like I have like training and platform and lots of privileges in other ways, and an ability to tell other stories or help other people tell their stories that don't necessarily relate to my own experience at all. And that was actually kind of liberating. It was like, I don't just have to speak from a first person perspective. I can find different stories, different experiences, stuff that's way outside of my own scope of lived experience, but deserves a platform, deserves to be told, deserves to have public scrutiny and pressure put on, you know, powerful bodies of any description. So yeah, I think that like it's okay not to know things, but it's always good to ask.
I'd say someone who is, like you said, one foot in the door, you are still in it, so you can still look back to the starting point compared to someone who's been in the industry for like 20, 30, 40 years. I'd still say that you'd still have that fresh advice. You know what you would like to have known at the start. But I do have one more final question. Where would your film be available after its festival existence? So on YouTube, it's on Queer AF's showcase on YouTube. There's a slightly longer version of it on there with a few more additional interviews as well. And then all more information about what I'm working on and stuff is all on my website. All right, thank you very much. Yeah, cheeky plug. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you.